Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast, where we take a deep dive into everything AI. Today we've got a really good show today.
I hope so.
We got a really good day of
We have a
recording,
good day.
is
Yeah.
what I would say. We got a lot of great guests here. One thing I do want to quick throw out before we get into our guest is that think tank thought leadership powers us. They are producers, our editors, they are promoters. They are huge in our world. If you're thinking about doing a podcast, please have a conversation with them. They will find all the gaps and all the shortcomings that you need to fill to actually have a successful podcast.
If they can make these two idiots look good, then they got something going on. I was thinking about this in the drive-in, like how cool it is that we get to do this and get to do it with think tank thought leadership. So free parking. We don't have to pay for parking in the parking lot. Free coffee if you'd like, water. Don't forget editing, microphones, TV, cameras,
studio lights,
posting to social media accounts. Like there's so much work that goes into this. Like, yeah, we probably could do this in our basement and
it would look like it.
and it would look like it. Yeah. So we're just really grateful to the Think Tank Thought Leadership for supporting the podcast and everything that they do. So thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And today we have an awesome guest, a regular on our show, I would say at this point, Mr. Alex Mead from City Innovation.
Hey, it's good to meet you guys again.
Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. It's always
Now,
a pleasure.
we're going to talk about prompt engineering. We're going to talk about context engineering. We're going to talk about what makes a good prompt. Things have changed, obviously, since the inception of AI, which is, I guess, a ridiculous way to say it. But
Sure.
Even in the past couple of months, prompts and prompting and how to prompt better to get better results has changed.
Totally.
I want to talk about that. I want to kind of digest that a little bit more. You've got some ideas and some examples that you wanted to talk about. I'm sure we all have examples we could talk about at this point.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well,
All right. Good
we
show.
need a prompt to start.
we need a prompt to start the show. Exactly. Well, it's interesting to think about prompts, right? And I think that, you can kind of think about them in different ways. One of the ways, Andre Karpathy is, a very big name in kind of AI. And he wrote this article a couple of years ago called Software 2.0, where he was talking about kind of traditional machine learning is kind of eliminating code. So this was this way of like, these deep neural nets are just replacing kind of the logic of code and no one really knows what's going on. He's got this new kind of concept, if you will, called Software 3.0, which is kind of the next iteration, which is like, well, what is an LLM? And it's almost like a natural language operating system. And the prompts are like the programs that you run through these machines. So I think this is a pretty brilliant way to think about them. So this is kind of how I think about prompts. It's like a natural language program, if you will, to actually instruct these new types of computers on how to behave.
In for people that are literally just starting out, natural language literally is natural language, like how you would talk, how you would speak,
Yep. Or type.
Totally.
how
English.
you ramble. Because a lot of my prompts are just run-on sentences and rambling, which is exactly how I talk to people.
Yeah, no different.
So it's very natural language to me.
Yeah.
But to be able to add that context around it, I heard one of the local events that we had here not too long ago, a bigger event, the gentleman speaking said that talk to it like it's a person, not a computer. I mean, it's literally like having a conversation. I know for us, that's, no kidding.
Right.
But it's literally that simple. I get a lot of people that come up to me asking me about, I'm trying to add a prompt in, but it's just not working. And it just can't do what I want it to do. And it's like, you're not giving it enough context. It's just like if you're talking to somebody, you have to get, like if you had an assistant, literally an assistant standing in front of you, you have to give enough context to get it done.
Alex, could you, so they're talking to it like a human. I'm going to ask you to like dive into that a little bit more from the angle of, because it's trained on human language.
Right.
So could you like expand that a little bit and just kind of help make that make sense for people?
So the training process for these models is basically all the natural language that people can get their hands on. So we're talking about like literally the whole internet. A lot of this is getting figured out right now with what you can train on, what you can't in the courts, like legally, but all the labs are just training on everything. That's just what's actually happening. So it's all the written text of the internet. And so it's just encoding all of these like patterns somehow in this like massive structure of matrices and numbers and all that, right? Why do you talk to it like that? I mean, that's the natural input and output. These things are literally just stream of words going in, and then it gives you a stream of words going out that are the most probable thing. So it's all just statistics under the hood. That's the way they work. Things are changing a little bit with these so-called like reasoning models, which is kind of a big shift even in the last, let's say, 6 months to a year, right? With, I think the first reasoning model was like OpenAI. They released it late last year, late 24. And then DeepSeek obviously came out. I know we talked about that. And that was the first like real open source reasoning model where they're kind of doing more than just input and output. But fundamentally, these things are still operating the same. And so you just basically, you tell it what you want it to do. And the more clear, the better. We work with a lot of law clients at City, just due to some of our products like HiveMind. And I was just talking to a lawyer last week, and he's just like, "Oh, it's not good enough for like doing what I'm doing." And I'm like, "Let's take a look at your prompts. Let's look at these." And they were fine, but they were just like super plain. And I'm like, no. We need to get like way more detailed. And I'm like, we need to go through and list every possible thing you can about the client you're working with, and then go it. And he's just like, what do you mean? I was like, age, gender, race, education. Where did they grow up? What's their native language? Literally like what state are they from? What neighborhood are they from? And like, you can just watch these things get more and more credible as you give them more and more information. And then you're like, wait, I don't think you paid attention to the fact that he has a basic literacy rate. Can you like update this response based on it? And like, oh yeah, that's a good point. This is too like professional sounding. And then boom, you like boom it and they just repeat it. And it's like, oh wow, that's great. You know? So iterative and more details are great.
You're getting into the context engineering part of the conversation. I definitely want to spend some time there. But I want to go back to when you're talking about reasoning models, because that's, I think, important when you're considering your prompt as well. Because you would prompt a reasoning model and a non-reasoning model differently. Or I do anyway. They're based off your response. Maybe you don't. But before the reasoning models came out, I was getting involved when I was doing my prompts with like chain of thought to try to do reasoning before the reasoning model was a thing, because that's what the reasoning model is doing, right? Is it's doing its own chain of thought behind the scenes. So that's what I mean by prompting it differently.
Oh yeah.
So would you mind talking about that a little bit, and like when we're talking about reasoning models, what kind of its own prompting is happening behind the scenes, so that maybe that's when you're thinking about how you want to approach the model.
Yeah, totally. So like chain of thought is this idea of trying to guide the model through the process that you kind of want it to go through, and basically just saying that. So for example, it might be like, hey, I want you to write a piece of code that talks to this database. Remember, it's a SQL database, so you're going to have to use SQL at some point, and you're going to have a call to a remote resource, and you're going to have to get that data back, and you're going to have to maybe check and validate that data, and like you just like walk it through this process. That's like a chain of thought thing. Or you might be like, what's another good one? Changing the oil. You're like, hey, I know I have to change the oil in my truck. I don't know the process of this, but I know I'm generally going to have to like bring my truck someplace. I'm going to have to pay someone, and this, that, and the other. And you kind of like walk the model through these general steps. And then it'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. And it will kind of follow those. The reasoning models do that step for you, basically. So they're kind of better at doing that. So but again, under the hood, it's just prompt engineering on their end.
Right.
Yeah.
So it'll be like, oh, okay, first you need a formal plan. And you're like, okay. And then you can watch, they used to actually print, all the main models used to print the thought process, but then they were like, oh, that's actually giving away a lot of like proprietary information.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce, if you will, right?
ChatGPT's O3, their reasoning model will do that in a little window. It's not real expansive. Like you get to see a little bit of what's happening, and
I never noticed that.
It's thinking.
Yeah.
But because I use that model almost exclusively.
Have you used the new OpenAI agent yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. So it does that in it as well. It's not quite there yet, to be totally frank. But it's crazy how much it's thinking. So I just asked it earlier this week, like, hey, it's a classic problem in computer science is print hello world to the screen or write it to a file, right? So I was like, hey, can you just open up a file, test.txt, and write hello world to that file? And it's like, no problem, Alex, I got you. And the amount, it was printing to the screen too, like all the reasoning. And it was incredible. I mean, it was so much information. I was like, it couldn't even keep up. And it was like, what is a file? I mean, that was literally one thing I caught at one point. I'm like,
wow.
What is a file? That's wild. It took 19 seconds. It pulled it off, but it was we're not there yet. But yeah.
And for people who don't know what the agent is, I mean, it can do things on your behalf on your computer. Like, is it all browser based, or will it actually like be able to click around and open windows for you and open your notepad and things like that?
Yeah. So for now, this is even part of the kind of, we're getting a little bit abreast here on this conversation, but it was even confusing what it was doing. And so the short answer is no. Right now, it's only in the browser.
Okay.
For at least for this tool. I mean, there are a lot of agent tools you can build that run locally, like Claude Code, for example. But this one runs completely in the browser. It was doing all sorts of craziness. And then it said it was done. And I was like, okay, where is the file? And it's like, well, I have it.
Yeah.
It literally said that. And I was like, well, can you give it to me? And I was like, sure. And then just without prompting, it just downloaded. And I was like, okay. And I opened it and it was correct. But it was like, wow, that took like a long time. It didn't make sense. And I was like, where did that happen? And it was like, oh, I was running a virtual machine in the background and I did it all for you. And I was like, well, can I connect to that machine? Like, can I SSH in and like go around? And no, you can't do that. I was like, okay. But like, that's interesting. And then I was like, can you write a Python program that does hello world? Can you print that to the screen? And it was like, yes, I can do that as well. It went away for 2 minutes. I'm not kidding you. It went away for 2 minutes and was doing all sorts of craziness. And by craziness, I mean, I just don't know what it was doing.
Right.
And then it came back and it was like, yeah, I figured it out. And it just said, just write this. And it was print hello world, like the exact Python line. But I was like, wow, that is interesting. So it's a very early stage, but that was like a simple prompt as you can get. And it went for 2 minutes. I mean, 2 minutes, it was gone. I mean, I don't know what the bill was on that. It couldn't have been cheap. But an example that I actually thought of, because I knew we were doing this podcast, was like the specificity that's needed in these prompts and kind of the idea. So like one subtle example, when I first wrote the prompt, I was like, can you write hello world to a file? And then I thought, you know what? Actually, we should say like to a new file, because I don't want to use an old file. And then like, oh, actually, I should give it the name, right? So like you start to think through all the steps that are actually kind of all the details that are needed. This is a big part of prompt engineering, because you actually realize, okay, put the prompt down, pick it back up in like 5 minutes and read it again. Does that make sense? Or have someone hand you their prompt and you read it and be like, how clear is that? That's like a good way to think about how to write these prompts, because it's actually much harder to write specific things than you might think it is. Like
there is a lot of times where I'll have multiple windows open, writing a prompt in here, and then literally, like you said, I'll come back to it in a minute.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have to gather my thoughts after writing in the initial, and then it's, well, same thing. Oh, I got to get specific here because it's not going to understand this, or it's going to give me something generic because I'm not specific. Adding in the file names, where I want it to go to, what specifically output do I want. But I'll have multiple windows on and like 8 different conversations going based on that too, constantly. That's when I'm on my desk. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then going back, wait, what was I trying to do with this one?
Totally. There's another thing too called like multi-shot prompting. I'm sure you guys have heard of this. Where you actually give it examples of what you want. Nowadays, you can even like drop whole files in there as examples. So like I do a lot with PDF reports. And so it's like, PDFs are deliverables, right? We're consultants. So it's like, oh, drop in this like mega PDF that's got like hundreds of pages and be like, okay, this is an example of something we're trying to do. Use this kind of tone, use this kind of formatting even of like, this is the way the report looks. It's got a header section. It's got these executive summary, all these different things, right? So you can also give these things examples are a great way to prompt.
Have you either of you guys ever done reverse prompting where it just made me think of that, where you're giving it examples, you're giving it a lot of, here's what I'm trying to get output. This is what I want the file to look like, how I want it structured. It gives it to you. I then take it, like, even if it's as simple as writing an email. I'm trying to talk to this person, this potential client, whatever.
Right.
I want to talk about this, kind of rough it. It gives me a rough email. Excuse me. I will take it. I will modify that email, and then I will put it back in. Like, this is exactly how I want it to be. My final touches that I do, and I will enter it back into the system to say, this is the email I actually sent. Commit this to memory, and then give me a prompt. So next time I want to reply with this same type of email, what would be the appropriate prompt to get this? And it will give me a prompt back saying, this is what you're looking for next time.
That's cool. I like that a lot.
And then I can earmark that one and then come back next time when it's the same type of response. I'm, hey, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, you want a demo? We can do it. Simple stuff like that. I can add that prompt right in, and then it spits it out again.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're training it back in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do because we're always advocates of, this is just a tool in the beginning. You still have to do your human touch to it.
Yeah.
But put that back into the system. 100%. That's how it learns you.
Yeah.
Because I get a lot of people that, it doesn't know my voice. Did you ever show it exactly what?
Right.
Yeah.
What you ended up with that it gave you in the beginning. Just like if you're training an assistant, a human.
I definitely use the AIs to help me write prompts. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Because they're frankly, they're better at it than you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
They're really good.
You talk about that a lot. Like you and I were talking the other day, and you shared an example, and somebody's like, wait, you're using AI to talk to AI? Isn't that some AI inception shit or something? Like,
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a dream within a dream. It's exactly it. I mean, just like you said, they can write it better than you can. And if you're trying to get to that point, how would I best utilize making a prompt for this? What would that entail? Well, make sure you have this, and this in there.
Yeah. And this is where, like, just to get geeky for a second, this is where, like, a lot of people, when these things were first coming out, they were like, well, there's going to be a limit because of this, like, so-called information theory. And, you can only kind of generate so much information. And if the model is here and it's like all trained data, like, you're never going to get creative thoughts from that. It's like, okay, maybe that's theoretically true, but like for our day-to-day purposes, these things are just so good that they are generating like new thoughts, new kind of expressions, and this, that, and the other. So it's kind of like, I mean, maybe in a theoretical sense, I'm not writing a new Shakespeare novel or whatever, but like, who cares? These things are pounding out so much information, and it's so relevant, and it's well organized, and it's actually improving our workflows. So like, the theory guys can get lost in the theory and go to conferences forever. We're just going to start using these tools, and it's like, they're so good at this.
Totally.
I don't care what the theory is, if it's coming up with something better or not, like new or novel. It's like, I can just tell you empirically, it's better. Full stop.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Back more on the prompting thing. I'm glad you brought up using AI to prompt AI, because it will write better prompts than you'll ever come up with. You can actually, I built a little custom GPT in Chat GPT, and I uploaded, there's like Google came out, it's probably a little dated now, I probably need to update it. It was like a 70-page prompting guide that they released, and it was within the last 6 months or so. So I attached that to the custom GPT, and then I asked AI to write the custom instructions for the basically what I built was a prompting bot for me. So I can call that up. I don't have to keep uploading that document. I don't have to keep uploading the instructions because it's a custom GPT and it's just saved there for me. So I'll go to it and I'll say, hey, I need a prompt for this. And it's cool because it will, the way that I instructed it is it will ask me for some clarifying questions. And I wanted to bring that up too, because when you talk about specificity, you don't always think of everything in the first go round. So I have mine ask me clarifying questions one at a time, because I hate it when it asks like 10 questions and you have to try to like answer to number 1 is this, answer to number 2. So I have it ask me questions one at a time. And then through that, it will start to get a better idea of what it is that I really want. And there's also a step in there where it writes a prompt and then it critiques that prompt and then it says back to me like, hey, actually this prompt kind of sucks and here's why. Do you want me to fix that? Or do you want me to change that? So it's more interactive and it's less me trying to like at the very front end, trying to come up with everything in the beginning. So it's more of a back and forth is how I have that's how I use it. More interactive.
Totally.
And you said earlier you built a GPT for that though?
Yep.
Specifically?
Yep.
See, I rarely build separate GPT. Mine is just like a data dump into one, and I barely change models either. Like I'm usually on 4.0 and that's it.
Really?
And I put everything into it, probably way too much, but it knows everything all at once, I guess, for me. I rarely change models.
I rarely use O4. I use O3 for almost everything. And I have a couple custom GPTs that I use a lot and projects. Like I've got this big thing that I've been working on and I keep uploading files to it in a project and I just keep pumping this thing for questions and output and material and all kinds of stuff.
Do you guys ever use the deep research prompting?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where they like go away for like 10, 20 minutes.
Yep.
I think those are so cool. Yeah.
It is awesome.
It's much more comprehensive of what you get back to.
Yeah.
Like it is much more detailed.
What do you use it for?
I will usually use it for something like I want to learn about something. So, something that maybe I have a slight idea, but I'm not really sure. Like the latest one I did was, this is going to sound a little funny. I can't get into context because it's a client, but like, what are the number of working moms in their like late 20s that like drop their kids off at daycare? And so I was like, I have like, I don't, 1 million people in the U.S. Is it 100,000? I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Professional women who have like graduate degrees, and I like wanted to understand that. So I just like asked it. I was like, hey, like, can you look into this and write me a report and like look and just give like a demographic breakdown of like, we were trying to figure out TAM, so total addressable market for a product. And so I was like, can you just write me like a whole thing? And it's like, yep. And it like went away, and then it came back, and it was like, reference census data and reference like how many people went to college and kind of all these different things, and then like birth rates, and kind of like gave me some trend lines and stuff. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah. So that would be like one example.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
And I'll typically start in 4.0 writing up like the simple version of it. Like give me a plan, because I use it for a lot of like strategies and plans.
Yeah.
Write me up a comprehensive plan that does X, Y, Z. And you put it in like 4.0 and it's okay, here it is. Here's like the 8 steps. And it's pretty basic. It's pretty simple. If I agree with that and need to change anything, I'll change. Hey, change 3 around. I want that number 2. Tweak this, that. Then I'll take that whole thing and say, okay, now in deep research, now give me something with much more meat and detail to it, with action steps to it. Like I really write this thing out, and it's the same thing. Goes away for like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
It's like $500 million that I just spent.
You just drained 2 lakes.
Exactly.
Well, I even have it where I'm like, I've even forgot about some of the prompts because they're so verbose. It's like, oh, sorry, I don't have time to read a 40-page document tonight. I'm reading 2 others. So you can like outpace yourself quickly.
You really can.
Yeah.
Then you got to use AI to condense it down into a readable format.
Right. Yeah. That's your classic joke, right? It's like, I'm prompting the AI to write a report. You're taking that report,
Using
condensing
AI
it back
to
down.
condense it. Yeah.
It's just the slop is everywhere. That is a problem, though. I mean, the slop is getting crazy. But
it is. But it's like we've got this new thing, and we're still trying to figure out how to use it. So it is going to be messy, and eventually and that's why we're using it as much as we are. It's why we have this podcast and the meetup is getting people to use it, because the more you use it, just like any other thing, the better you'll get at it. There will be less slop. You'll start, because even in deep research, if you think about it ahead of time, you can say keep the output to 2 pages.
Sure.
Don't give me an encyclopedia. You know, if you, because I've generated things, I'm like, well, I'm not reading that. That's way too much. That's
too much.
way too much. I didn't think ahead of time. It's like, I know me. I'm not going to read that whole thing. Just keep it brief. Be very in depth, but keep it.
Well, that's something.
Short.
That's just like a great practical tip about prompting too. Like I almost end every prompt with "be brief." Literally, BE space BRIEF. Right? Be brief. And it makes a difference. It literally does. Like if you're like, how do I do this command in JavaScript? It will give you 2 pages of that's a great question about JavaScript. Many people think that it's this, this, that, and the other. Just get to the code, bro.
Yep.
Like and then it'll be like one line. After you scrolled. So if you're just like be brief but thorough is another one that I'll do. Be brief but thorough.
Yeah, because you want to
be specific and be brief.
That's
specific.
What I usually.
Yeah,
that's a great one as well.
Step 1, step 2, step 3, done. Yeah, I don't need to know the whole history of it.
No, you want an executive summary because you could even say, give it to me in the format of an executive summary, or you could say, start with an executive summary and then be as verbose as you want after that. If I wanted to kind of scroll through and look at more details, we always run out of time, and I always have a million more things that I want to say, but. Can we get back to context engineering and talk about that? So you started talking about that a little bit earlier. Context engineering is a term that's becoming more popular. I'm seeing it in more of the things that pop up in my news feed and my subreddits and things like that. And I'm going to ask you to expand on this. And you kind of already did, like I said, but it's and you said this too, the more context you're giving the model, the better output you're going to get. So your example of age, race,
right,
education level, all those kinds of things. So where are you seeing that going, or have you had success in using context engineering? And we can maybe all share examples of that. But I just want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think that really is where people are getting frustrated with the output that they're getting, is because they're not providing enough context when they're putting their query in.
Yeah. I think it's like everything. It's kind of like, we used to have this term garbage in, garbage out with a lot of these like machine learning models and just fundamentally statistics and regressions, right? It's very similar principles hold, where it's kind of like, dude, if you only tell it like a 3-word prompt or a 1-sentence prompt, like, it can only go it can only go so far with that. It's like, be as verbose as you want. We're at a stage now where like the context on these things are like 1 million tokens. So like for our listeners, that means like you can type until the cows come home and these models will still be able to process it. Like they can put whole books of information in there. So the more that you can give it, the more it's going to be able to help you and reflect you. So like, we talk about dropping PDFs in there. You could like write a whole novel in there literally, and it will give you background. So like maybe, like one example is I was using one of these like programming bots, if you will, these AI tools. And I just wrote a whole paragraph about all the stuff I wanted it to do. And I was like, give me like the skeleton of this code so then I can go in. Because these things are still not writing good code. I don't care what they say. It's still not good. It works.
Lovable would say differently.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Please sponsor us. The Lovable.
I'm a lovable.
Someone had to bring it up.
Yeah. I mean, like, they're good. They're writing a lot of code, but there's like best practices that they're just not doing still. And you can re-follow up to do that. So like maybe, for example, so I was writing this front end tool. I'm not a front end guy, but I was like, I want it to use React. I want it to use this pattern. I want it to use, this security thing. I want it to do this. I want it to do that. And then a thing it didn't do was it just like hard coded all these like values throughout the code. And if you're a technical person, you'd be like, oh, that's terrible, because then you have to go through and change everything. So I was like, I followed up and I was like, oh, by the way, can you make this like a config file where all the parameters are in one file?
Right.
That's standard practice in coding. And it's like, oh, yeah, I don't know why I didn't do that. That's a great idea. And you're like, yeah, I don't know either. But like, that's kind of like an example of like, you can give it so much context that then it will, like, I guarantee you if I was like, oh, and by the way, write this with a parameters file such that it has all of the values that are used throughout this code in one place, it would have done that,
Yeah.
So this is where it's like, yeah, you need to really be completely clear in everything that you're trying to get it to do. but I notice huge improvements the more I write in there. You can't outright it. It will.
Right.
You cannot give it too many details.
I think one thing to know is going back to, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people tell me, well, it's not smart enough to do this. No, it is. I think it's just the specificity that you give it. It's not unintelligent. It's just the direction you're giving it. Just like you said, well, I don't know. Why didn't you make it in this format? I didn't. Okay. It didn't know that's the format you want until you mentioned that. Just like you're talking to somebody, hey, I want to paint my house blue.
Right.
Okay, here it is. It's blue. It's eggshell blue. Well, I wanted it, Sherwin-Williams cobalt blue.
Right.
And I want the shutters to be white. Now it knows the direction to actually take it. So having some of those, more of those specifics in there. I'm interested to understand how you're adding more context to it.
Yeah, but like examples, like if you're, and we've talked about this in here before, like if you were to ask ChatGPT to help you plan a family trip.
Sure.
So think of ChatGPT as your travel agent. And this goes back to what we said earlier about talking to it like a human. So if I just said to ChatGPT and I said, plan a family trip to Chicago. And if you stop there, you're going to get a response. It's going to probably give you, go to Navy Pier, go to the museums or whatever.
Right.
But you're going to be like, well, I don't want to go to those places. I've got little kids, or I have older kids, or I'm afraid of heights, or whatever it is. So then you start giving it more context to say, okay, I have 3 children. These are their ages.
Right.
Little Tommy is into fire trucks. Susie loves American Girl dolls, and Davy loves Harry Potter.
Sure.
Now you're giving it more context. It's going to say, oh, well, I didn't know that. But you could also say, like, I don't want to fly, I want to drive, or things that your travel agent would ask you eventually, so that they can give you a good trip. That's the way that you have to think about prompting the AI. That could be, that's a personal example, but business example is, hey, I'm going to be meeting with a client. Give me some tips on. I know you do this when you're talking. You're
all the time.
Talking in the car.
I do all the time. Pete from New Wave.
Yeah, none of our brains work anymore because AI is doing everything.
Well, that is a thing, yeah.
But if you wanted to have a really good meeting with a client, you would give it everything about that client that you can possibly tell it. And then it's going to give you a much better output. So, and you can come up with a million examples of this, but it's data. That's why I love the ChatGPT memory feature. And I know that you're using that too, because it's building context about you all the time. So I could, and I've done this, I've said, hey, I've got a speaking engagement. I'm going to be talking about AI. Can you just write a bio for me based off of everything you know about me and my involvement with AI? And it knows we have the podcast. It knows we have the AI meetup. It knows that I don't like Drew very much. It knows that I've done other speaking engagements, and it knows which ones I've done because I've put all that stuff in there. And it will write a great bio without me having to tell it, but it already has that context because it's building that memory. And that's where I think all this is going, is we're going to have this personal AI that really knows everything about us. And then when you ask it to do something, it'll be able to do it on the first try because it already knows everything about you. And if you're willing to give up that information, you could have a really incredible experience with AI.
Yeah.
Do either of you guys put in the beginning, like, hey, pretend you're a travel agent and talk to me like a travel agent, or pretend you're the sales manager of a company? Yeah. Do you end up putting that in, kind of giving it that persona?
I do.
Yeah.
I never say pretend though. I say you are.
Well, yeah. I guess that's probably why I'm not getting as good of results.
No. Another thing too that somebody suggested this to me a while back, and I use it, is like actually put in the name of really famous people who are good at that thing. You might be like, hey, pretend you are, the combination of Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and all these big famous psychologists to, help me with this issue. And it's like, it kind of almost like feels like it guides the model to that part of its like memory, if you will, or that latent space. That's another one. If you like name drop, or what I say too is like, you can never use a word that it doesn't know. So if you've got technical words, or you've got like, some big word you remember from the GRE or college or whatever, like just throw it in there, man. You're never going to have someone say, what does that mean? It knows. It knows. It
I
knows it better
usually
than
have the exact opposite experience.
Well,
How do you
that word?
do you type, like, physically? Are you typing a lot of this in? Are you using the voice mode? Like,
You and I are the opposite. I type everything. I never use the voice feature.
this is how I do it for context. Is I am so much more fluent, I guess, with voice features. So I will be I won't do it in my office, obviously, or my cube at work, because people think I'm crazy then. But I will literally go into another room in another conference room, and I will pull it up on my phone or on my laptop and just start talking to it, saying, all right, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to put together a plan for this client. Here's what the challenges they have, and just start talking back and forth like it's literally another person in the room. And then at the end, it's like, okay, cool. Can you format that into a table that I can use later? And it logs everything. So you have it right there. So then I can go back in at my desk and go, okay, now I can take this and I can put it somewhere.
That's actually maybe something cool for people to know, that if you're using the voice feature, you can go back later and all of that transcript is there. So you don't have to worry about like, well, yeah, I was talking with it, but I don't have anything to show for it. It's all there.
Everything. Yeah. And for me, it's just much more easier to have a conversation with somebody, like if it was an assistant, than to sit there and type and trying to figure out the right word to use in there. I'm like, I just want to brain dump. That way I can go back and forth, 50 times to go, okay, that's what I'm asking for.
that's super smart. Yeah.
What do you do?
I do all the above. I don't talk to it as much, but I have a handful of times while I'm driving, and I think it's great. I just should get back into it more. But for me, driving is usually listening to podcasts, so I don't do that as much. But I type like a crazy person, so I do a lot of typing interface. I also have I use the APIs for these tools a lot. So a library I like a lot is called LangChain, and it has a whole bunch of code things that allow you to store these prompts and kind of put them together like Lego bricks, if you will. So I do that a lot, and that's great, because then you can reuse them, you can modify them, you can kind of store them in ways and best practices, and So I do a ton with the chat, just the interface with mostly ChatGPT nowadays. I used to use Perplexity a ton and Gemini a ton. I just don't use them as much anymore. Not that they're bad. I just mostly ChatGPT. And then I do a lot of reviews too. So I'll go and look at old chats, bring them back up. I wish their search feature was better.
It's just going to mention that. The same thing. Because I have one big bucket. I've got a couple of projects that are broken out in it, but because it's one big bucket, it's like, I wish I could. Yeah, the search, just to try and find that conversation. I don't know when it was, but we talked about this.
Right.
How would you do it differently? Because I've only used the search maybe 5 times.
I don't know. I think it would be, well, I know exactly what I would do. It would be, the user experience would be like, I know I had this conversation with you in the last 7 days, let's say. Last week I had this conversation. I know that you gave me some very good commands to write in code. What were they? Where was that conversation? Because since then I've had 150 conversations and I can't find that one, and you saved it under what seems to be arbitrary title. Yeah. So I literally am just using the time that I think this conversation happened to try to go find it.
So there is an actual search thing where you can go hit search and you can type in the word that you want to find.
I don't think that really exists. I mean, they have it. You can search your chats, but it's not good.
So, okay, because I think we might be talking about search differently. Oh, because that's what I'm talking about, is that little search thing where you just type in there. If you wanted to find the word potato, it would tell you every instance of potato in all of your chats.
Right.
But you're more of wanting to reference an idea. Correct. Okay, I get that. So and I don't do that. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to ask it to find that, and you're just not getting.
There is a search. It's just so general. it's so general that I end up kind of rehashing some of the stuff. Hey, we talked, like I use the voice feature again, and because mine's all in one bucket, I can say, we talked about this before. What was the advice that you talked about, or what was the prompt that you gave me, or what was the nugget?
When you say one bucket, are you have like one ongoing chat and you just keep it going?
No,
forever and ever?
it's multiple.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
That's why I wanted to know because I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder, because you would eventually lose the front end of that due to the context window. So I was just kind of thinking through that. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, I think I think searching the chats would be really helpful. I also do use the different models a lot. I kind of dance around a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm like totally dialed. I don't think anyone really knows exactly, but like the minis are a little quicker and that kind of thing. But I know that I could do better on that, but I know that that's a big thing too. I mean, I use like the deep research and the pro a lot, but yeah, those are helpful.
Do you think that's what GPT-5 will be, is kind of like automatic transmission where it'll automatically shift to the model you need based off of what you're asking it?
I don't know. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
that's my theory. Put that in Pete's future predictions.
Put that in an envelope and mail it to yourself. Yeah. I don't know. Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what these like so-called mixture of expert models are kind of doing, right? Is they're like not activating the whole model. I mean, there's like, compute reasons why you would want to do that. It's easier to run them. And then also it's like, maybe certain parts are trained to have better performance in cooking versus travel planning versus writing code versus whatever. But no, I'm just thinking like the user experience in these things, we're still like trying to figure them out. It's like if you went back and looked at like mobile, like in 2011, that's when I first started writing like apps, even before that, 2009, right? Like, a lot of these things that we all take for granted, like, oh, you're going to have this like pop-up window, or, oh, you're going to have this type of like user pattern throughout an app, just hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of in that stage still with AI where you're like, well, I don't really actually know what the best user interface is for these things. And that's what, the entrepreneurs or people are figuring out right now. It's like, what is the best way? Is it, like with ChatGPT, it has this weird like codex thing that will pop up sometimes when you're asking a computer question. You're like, well, what the heck is this? It like totally changed. And it's like, oh, we've determined that this is the better way to interface with you right now. And you're like, no, I don't want that. If I was doing that, I would just go to like Cursor. I don't want that. I'm just asking you a broad question, so we're trying to figure that out, right now,
All right, we got to wrap this up. I know you want to ask more questions, but
fine.
Oh.
So let me do this. I think this would be fun. What is the biggest takeaway for prompt if you had to tell somebody? I don't want to say correct somebody, but if you had someone ask you about how do I prompt better, what would be the one thing you would tell them?
Do you want to go first?
You cannot be too verbose. You can just keep talking and keep going and keep iterating. And if you don't like what spit out, tell it why you didn't like it and ask it to try again. That's what I would say.
Nice. Pete?
I would say use AI to write your prompts if you feel like you're not getting good prompts, or if you don't feel like you're good at prompting, because it's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mine would be when you get your output, your final output of whatever it is, re-enter it back in so it learns and understands, so it makes it easier the next time.
Shit, I should have said that was my best takeaway, because that was new for me when you said that.
I was hoping you wouldn't.
I'm sorry. Can we do this over again?
You can save them to files too. I do that. I save them to files and send them to people. Hey,
oh, nice.
Do this. Yeah, hey, do this. This is what you should be doing.
There's tip number 4.
There you go. Bonus
Here's an example. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Alex, I always appreciate you having on. It's always cool because we always learn new stuff, and we always get good conversations going. Yeah. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you like what you heard today, hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.